One zodiac sign exists because a crab died for nothing. Another exists because a god panicked so badly he turned into the wrong animal. And another exists because two brothers refused to be separated, even by death. The zodiac was never just astrology. To the ancient Greeks, these 12 signs were not personality types. They were memories: a ram, a bull, a pair of twins, a lion, a scorpion, two fish tied together in the dark. Each one came from a story the gods decided was too important to let disappear. These are not 12 random symbols. They are 12 myths carved into the sky. And the first one begins with a child being led to his own sacrifice. Aries begins with a trap. King Athamas of Boeotia had 2 children, Phrixus and Helle. But his new wife, Ino, wanted them gone, so she created a disaster. She convinced the women of the kingdom to secretly roast the seeds before they were planted. When the crops failed, famine spread across the land. Then, when the desperate king sent messengers to the oracle at Delphi, Ino had already bribed them. The answer they brought back was a lie. The gods, they said, demanded the sacrifice of Phrixus. Athamas had no way of knowing he had been deceived, so he led his own son to the altar. And just before the knife could fall, Hermes sent a miracle from the sky, a flying ram with a golden fleece. Its name was Chrysomalos. The ram carried Phrixus and Helle away from the altar, away from Ino, away from the death waiting for them. But the escape came with a cost. As they flew over the narrow sea between Europe and Asia, Helle lost her grip and fell into the water below. That place would be known forever as the Hellespont, the Sea of Helle. Phrixus survived and reached Colchis, at the far edge of the Black Sea. There, in gratitude, he sacrificed the golden ram to Zeus and gave its fleece to King Aetes. The king hung it in a sacred grove, guarded by a dragon that never slept. Years later, that same fleece would become the reason Jason and the Argonauts crossed the known world. But before it became a prize, it was a rescue. Zeus remembered the ram that saved an innocent life and paid with its own, so he placed it in the heavens as Aries. The golden ram, the first sign of the zodiac. And this was only the beginning, because not every sign was placed in the sky for heroism. Some were placed there for desire, some for loyalty, some for failure, and one of them for pure panic. The second sign belongs to Zeus himself. Taurus begins with Europa, daughter of the Phoenician king Agenor. She was known across the ancient world for her beauty, and when Zeus saw her playing near the coast of Sidon, he decided to approach her in a form that would not frighten her. He became a white bull, not a monster, not a storm. A perfect, gentle animal with shining horns and calm eyes. Europa approached it without fear. The bull lowered itself. She climbed onto its back, thinking it was a harmless game. And then the bull moved toward the sea. At first, slowly, then faster. Europa screamed. Her companions ran to the shore, but the white bull did not stop. It entered the Mediterranean and carried her across the water all the way to Crete. From that union came 3 sons, Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Sarpedon. Minos would become the great king of Crete. Europa would give her name to an entire continent, and the bull that crossed the sea would rise into the sky as Taurus, the second sign of the zodiac. But the third sign is different, because Gemini is not about a god taking someone from Earth. It is about someone refusing to let death take his brother. Leda, queen of Sparta, gave birth to twins. Castor was the son of her mortal husband, Tyndareus. Pollux was the son of Zeus. One brother was mortal, the other was immortal. But for most of their lives, that difference meant nothing. They grew up together. They fought together. They sailed together with Jason and the Argonauts. They were inseparable. Until the day Castor died. During a fight with their cousins, Eetus and Lynceus, Castor was killed. Pollux was left alone, and for the first time, he understood what immortality truly meant. He could live forever, but Castor could not, and without Castor, forever meant nothing. So Pollux went to Zeus and asked for something almost no god would grant. He asked to share his immortality with his brother. Zeus accepted. From that moment on, the twins would divide eternity between them, one day on Olympus, one day in the underworld, always together, but never fully free from the price of death. Zeus placed them side by side in the heavens as Gemini, the eternal twins, a sign that some bonds are not broken even by death. But the next sign is stranger, because Cancer is not the story of a hero. It is not the story of a monster. It is the story of a creature that failed completely and was remembered anyway. Heracles was fighting the Hydra in the swamps of Lerna. The Hydra was a serpent that grew 2 heads for everyone it lost. The battle seemed impossible, and Hera, who hated Heracles from the moment he was born, watched from above, searching for a way to interfere. So she sent a crab, just one crab. It crawled out of the swamp and pinched Heracles on the foot while he fought the Hydra. Heracles barely noticed. He crushed it under his heel. The crab died instantly. It saved no one. It changed nothing. It accomplished absolutely nothing. But Hera remembered. The crab had obeyed. It had entered a battle it could not win. It had served its goddess until the end. So Hera placed it in the sky as Cancer, the faintest constellation of the Zodiac, hard to see with the naked eye, as if even the heavens remember that it was the smallest of them all. Cancer is proof that the Greeks did not only honor victory, sometimes they honored loyalty, even when loyalty failed. And if Cancer is the quietest sign, Leo is the opposite. Leo begins with the Nemean lion, a creature no weapon could wound. Its hide bent spears, turned away arrows, resisted every blade. For years it terrorized the region of Nemea, killing livestock and people while no one could stop it. Then Heracles arrived for his first labor. He tried arrows. They bounced off. He tried a spear. It bent. Nothing worked. So Heracles stopped fighting like a soldier and started thinking like a hunter. He followed the lion to its cave. The cave had 2 entrances. Heracles blocked one and entered through the other. No weapons, no distance, no escape. In the darkness, he wrapped his arms around the lion and strangled it with his bare hands. Then he used the lion's own claws to cut through its hide, because they were the only thing sharp enough to pierce it. From then on, Heracles wore the lion's skin as armor, a visible reminder that he had defeated what no weapon could touch. Zeus placed the lion in the sky as Leo, the 5th sign of the Zodiac, the beast no blade could kill. But after strength comes something much more fragile, justice. Virgo tells a story unlike the others. It is not about a battle. It is not about a monster. It is about what humanity lost when it became too violent to live beside the gods. In the Golden Age, the gods walked among mortals. People knew no war, no hunger, no cruelty. And among them lived Astraea, daughter of Zeus and Themis, goddess of justice. Her role was to keep balance between right and wrong in the human world. But the ages passed. The Silver Age came. Then the Bronze Age. Human beings grew harsher, greedier, more willing to solve every problem with force. One by one, the gods abandoned the earth. But Astraea stayed. She was the last immortal to remain among humans. She believed justice could survive, even when people no longer deserved it. But when the Iron Age arrived, the world had fallen too far. Violence had become normal. Order could no longer hold. And finally, Astraea left. She rose into the heavens carrying a sheaf of wheat, a symbol of the abundance humanity once had and lost. Virgo is the 6th sign of the Zodiac, the goddess who was the last to give up, the justice humanity made impossible to keep. And the scales connected to her story became the next sign. Libra belongs to Themis, the goddess of divine law, the order beneath the world. Her scales were not decoration. They measured the weight of choices before the universe accepted them as final. Libra is the only zodiac sign that does not represent a person or an animal. It is an object, an idea, a law, the belief that the world only functions because something exists to weigh what is right against what is wrong. And that weight is not optional. Without the scales of Themis, none of the other stories would have meaning. Because honor, punishment, sacrifice, loyalty, and pride only matter in a universe where actions have weight. But some constellations were not rewards, some were warnings. Scorpio begins with Orion, the greatest hunter who ever lived, a son of Poseidon, a man so skilled that no beast seemed beyond his reach. And that was the problem. Orion knew exactly how powerful he was. At some point, he declared that he could kill every animal on Earth, not as a joke, not as a boast spoken in anger. He said it like a fact, and Gaia heard him. The mother of all living things listened from beneath the ground he stood on. Then she answered. She sent a scorpion from the earth, not an ordinary creature, a weapon born from the world itself to humble a man who believed he had no limits. The scorpion attacked from below, from the ground, from the one place Orion had never considered a threat. Its venom killed him. Zeus placed both Orion and the scorpion in the sky, but never together. When Scorpio rises in the east, Orion sinks in the west. When Orion returns, Scorpio disappears. The chase continues every night, neither one ever catching the other. Scorpio is the 8th sign of the Zodiac, the Earth's answer to arrogance, a reminder that even the greatest hunter can still be hunted. The 9th sign comes from Mount Helicon, home of the Muses, and it belongs to someone most people have never heard of. His name was Crates. He was the son of Pan and Euphame, the nurse who raised the 9 Muses. Crates grew up surrounded by music, poetry, and art. He was not a god, but he was not an ordinary man either. Over his life, he mastered 2 things. The first was archery. He trained until he could draw the bow and release the string with perfect timing. The second was smaller, but it lasted longer. When the Muses performed, Crates struck his hands together rhythmically to show that what he had heard deserved recognition. According to the myth, Crates invented applause. When he died, the Muses asked Zeus to place him in the sky, not because he conquered a monster, not because he saved a kingdom, but because he lived between art and skill and honored both. Zeus turned him into Sagittarius, the archer, a centaur with his bow drawn tight, frozen forever in the instant before the arrow flies. And then comes the most absurd sign in the zodiac, a sign born not from courage, but from panic. To understand Capricorn, you need to know Pan. He had the body of a man, the legs of a goat, small horns, and a flute he played in the forests. He was not a god of war, not a god of wisdom. He was the god of shepherds, wild places, and sudden fear, the kind of fear that hits a person alone in the dark with no clear reason. The Greeks called that feeling panic because of Pan. Then came Typhon, the 100-headed monster who nearly destroyed Olympus. When Typhon marched against the gods, the Olympians fled. Many transformed into animals to hide. Pan was standing beside the Euphrates River when Typhon approached. Fear took him completely. He leapt into the water and tried to transform into a fish, but the transformation went wrong. The part of him already underwater became a fish. The part still above the surface stayed a goat. Pan climbed out as both things at once, half goat, half fish, a creature that should not exist. And then he screamed. The sound was so strange, so unnatural, that Typhon paused for a moment, and that moment mattered. Hermes used it to return to Zeus the tendons Typhon had torn from him. Zeus recovered his strength, and Olympus survived. When the war ended, Zeus remembered what happened beside the Euphrates. Pan had not been brave. He had not planned anything. He had run in terror, transformed badly, and screamed because he did not know what else to do. But that mistake helped save the gods. So Zeus placed the goatfish in the sky as Capricorn, the 10th sign of the Zodiac, the god who panicked at the worst possible moment and still changed the outcome of the war. Not everything in the sky is a god or a monster. Some constellations are simply people the gods refuse to leave on Earth. Aquarius is Ganymede, Prince of Troy, son of King Tros, the most beautiful young man in the mortal world. One day, while tending his flocks on Mount Ida, a shadow fell over him. Zeus, either transformed into an eagle or sending his sacred eagle, descended from the sky. The eagle seized Ganymede and carried him to Olympus. There, Ganymede became the cupbearer of the gods. He poured nectar at the banquets of the immortals. Zeus gave him eternal life. His father, King Tros, received divine horses in exchange, the finest horses in the world, and a promise that his son was alive among the gods. Whether that was enough for a father who had lost his child, the myths do not say. Aquarius is the 11th sign of the Zodiac, the water-bearer, the mortal the sky chose without asking him, the one the gods could not let go. And the Zodiac ends where the terror of Typhon began, beside the river, during the same war that turned Pan into the impossible goatfish. Aphrodite stood near the water with her son, Eros. When Typhon approached, they felt the same fear as every other god. Aphrodite took Eros in her arms and prepared to leap into the river. They would transform into fish and escape through the current. But just before she jumped, she realized something. The river was wide. The current was strong. If they transformed and swam, they might be carried in different directions. They might survive and still lose each other. So Aphrodite tied a cord between herself and Eros. No matter how violent the river became, the thread would keep them together. Then they jumped. 2 fish, 2 directions, 1 single bond. Zeus placed that image in the sky after the war, not because Aphrodite defeated Typhon, not because she stood and fought, but because in the most terrifying moment in the history of Olympus, she thought not of herself, but of not losing her child. Pisces is the 12th sign, the end of the cycle. 2 fish bound by a thread the current could not break. 12 signs. 12 moments the Greek gods decided could not disappear. A ram that saved a boy and paid with its life. A white bull that crossed the sea. 2 brothers who divided immortality, because being together mattered more than living forever apart. A crab that failed completely and was honored anyway. A lion that no weapon could kill. A goddess who stayed on earth until humanity made justice impossible. The scales that measure the weight of every choice. A scorpion sent to humble the greatest hunter alive. An archer who honored art and skill. A god who panicked, transformed into the wrong shape, and accidentally helped save Olympus. A mortal boy taken into the halls of the gods, and 2 fish tied together so the river could not separate a mother from her child. So the Zodiac is not just a circle of symbols. It is not only a calendar. And to the Greeks, it was never just a way to describe personality. They looked at the sky and saw memory. They saw rescue, desire, loss, justice, arrogance, fear, love, and the strange ways even failure can become immortal. So the next time someone asks your zodiac sign, remember this. You are not just naming who you are. You are naming the myth the gods refuse to forget.